Leadership and leading teams is about one thing. You want just more of that. It's always on my mind.
How long have you been an entrepreneur for?
15 years. It's been quite the roller coaster. There's no better formula than just...
Ghassan Halazon is a Jordanian-Canadian entrepreneur and founder of Emerge Commerce. His various business ventures have generated nearly $1 billion in sales and employing over 350 people.
Is work-life balance a thing for you?
If you want to be a superstar, there is no such thing as balance.
How do you emotionally regulate yourself?
It's just something on your mind, man. I can't do anything else but build. And I almost, in a weird way, love the drama of it, the issues that I have to deal with, the constant mountains. Tough times are all around startups. I want to know that you're the bootstrap type of founder that can make this happen with limited capital. That's what interests me.
How do you identify a high caliber prospect?
There's certain people within the organization that are just going to be winners no matter what.
So if there's a founder, entrepreneur, leader of an organization listening, watching this, what advice would you give them? We find it very interesting that the majority of you who watch and listen to this show aren't yet subscribed to our channels across Spotify, Apple, YouTube. It would mean the world to us if you can do us that small kindness. It allows us to continue to bring on amazing guests week after week and continue to provide you with amazing value and content. It's the only thing we'll ever ask of you. If you can hit that follow or subscribe button, it would mean the world to us. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. Yeah, it's hard to put together a structure when your week is kind of all over the place. And we were talking about that right before we started rolling, this concept of, you know, what your Monday looks like, your Tuesday, your Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm curious, do you have an off button? Do you stop after a certain time of day? Or is it like an important email comes in on your phone at 7 p.m. at night and you're just sort of ready to go?
It's a constant struggle, right? There's blocks and windows where I try to tune out. So I make it a point, no matter what, to be home for dinner with my family, with my wife and 2-year-old daughter. I try to be there by 5. So I really don't subscribe to an endless river of hours into the late nights without seeing family and without pausing. So I really do try to do that well. So maybe dinner's chaotic, don't get me wrong, with a young family. But as soon as dinner's done and there's a little bit of play at home, it's always on my mind. Like the minute my daughter goes to bed, I'm like, okay, I might need to go down or for a jog or for a swim, and right away I try to clear my mind that way, but it's just constantly there. So I may come up with an idea while I'm in my quiet time and I'll run to my phone and just note it quickly before I forget. And then I'll go back up and try to unwind, grab a tea, and then it's back there again. It's one of those things that when you're running a business and going through all sorts of trials and tribulations at any given time, it's really, really hard to tune out. So I haven't mastered it, but I know I have to get better at it.
So you're an entrepreneur, you're a founder. How long have you been an entrepreneur for?
15 years. It dawned on me, I was about to do a talk recently, and I was sort of looking back, and just like with age, you get used to saying a number all year round, and then eventually it becomes the next number. And I was like, wow, like it's been 15 years since I made the leap, if you can call it that, into entrepreneurship, and it's been quite the roller coaster.
Roller coaster is a good word. Every entrepreneur founder that I talk to talks about the roller coaster.
Right.
They talk about the ups and downs, and you're kind of just strapped into that roller coaster, and you don't really have a choice. You're kind of just going with it. You don't know what the next turn is. You don't know when the next dip is. How do you manage the inconsistency? Because when you're an employee, let's say, you kind of have a sense of what your day is going to look like. And then once it hits 3, 4, 5 o'clock, whatever your time off is, you just check out mentally and you're kind of done, at least for the most part. As an entrepreneur, like you just said, it's on your mind the whole time.
Right. It's exactly that. If you do it right, then employees get rewarded for the lifestyle they chose. In other words, they don't have to worry about it, right? If you do your job as CEO, as founder, the right way, and you take on that weight, and you got to manage your weight, but you got to take it on. It's your responsibility. The buck stops with you. It's the reason you get outsized rewards, is to deal with that pain as you're going through it. So I take that very seriously. I know I have a deep sense of responsibility towards my team and towards those who believe in me and have backed me and have supported us through the years. But it's part and parcel of the game you chose. You know, you're going for bigger rewards. You want your name to be known, and you have to deal with some of the darkest and toughest hours. And they're not just once upon a time, right? Like it's like a constant up and down and up and down and left and right. So it's part and parcel of the game.
Okay. What has been your biggest win in the last 15 years as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's a lot. The biggest win is still
a lot is good. That's good.
The biggest win by far is still being in the game. There's been so much that we've been fortunate, but also challenged with along the way. We've made so many damn mistakes. We've had so many issues. Everything that could have gone wrong basically went wrong in so many different ways and times. To continue to be here, talking about my journey, talking about our growth, our successes, our failures, and just continuing to stay true to being, an entrepreneur, a CEO, a founder, whatever you want to call it, is probably by far the biggest accomplishment of this all, because there's so many pockets where things could have been it. Mm-hmm. There's failed business situations. There's distressed moments. There's conflicts that, some of which I can't even go through, but you go through a lot. And I didn't get these gray hairs from nowhere, but to be here and to continue to be able to say, we overcame it. We're still here. We're standing. We're growing. That is the biggest success of all. But obviously there's smaller instances of specific business examples of something we bought cheap, sold high. We were able to make a lot of people a lot of money through the years. But I don't want to make it sound all rosy, because there's also the other side of it.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Right.
What's the other side of being an entrepreneur? Someone described it as eating glass.
Yeah, in the dark. I think eating glass sounds about right. Like you really, really eat shit is more like it. Okay.
Yeah.
I heard I could swear.
You can. Yeah, you're good.
Good. This is going to work. I think it's there's another saying I kind of find humorous and quite true. It's like, everything goes your way until you meet Mike Tyson in a parking lot and he punches you straight in the face, right? So it's kind of something like that. Like, it's like anytime you think you got it, anytime you think you've gotten this aura of invincibility, something comes and grounds you back down to earth.
Yeah.
And so it's very important to stay pretty balanced, I think is an important word.
Yeah.
Because and it goes both ways. You got to be balanced in the good times, but you also got to recognize in the bad times too, that you got to keep your composure, you got to breathe, and you got to be able to have a certain level of conviction that keeps you around here, right? Keeps you going. Why are you doing this? And who are you doing it for? And why is this worth the pain? If you don't feel you have an answer to why the pain is worth it, then you're not going to survive. You're not going to prolong. For me, it's a longevity game as well, right? Because if I can live the life that I want, building, making impact, learning, inspiring others, that to me, I'm playing the LeBron James game. I want the longevity game, right? I don't want 4 crazy years, I made it happen and I'm out, I'm on a beach somewhere. I couldn't live that way. I'd be on a beach for a month and then what, right? Something's got to come next. I got to build. I got to impact. I got to learn, right? I got to inspire. And that's why, for me, like looking at it, and back to your first question or your previous question, 15 years doing this, still being my own quote unquote boss, still running shit, that's exciting to me.
What's the character trait that someone needs to have to be a successful founder or entrepreneur?
It depends on which world of entrepreneurship.
Okay.
If you're playing the blue sky entrepreneurship method, as I call it,
Which is what?
which is from 0 to 100 billion,
Okay.
and you want to play the VC game, then you need a certain level of insanity, right? You need a little bit of almost naivety and kind of like cluelessness so that you can be, as ambitious and audacious as you need to be, because it's a numbers game, and your likelihood of getting there is extremely low from a mathematical perspective. So you need sort of bold edginess and aggressive approach to that sort of world. That is not my world. My world is more calculated entrepreneurship. It is more calculated risk, buying things that already work, things that already make money today, not maybe tomorrow. But even then, in this weird world that we're in this roller coaster of a macro climate that we're in, you need to be extremely resilient. Resilience is probably the heart of standing tall over time, right? Because you're gonna get knocked down. You're gonna get punched in the face, right? And no matter what, no matter how good things are going, and especially as you see things and startups on the outside celebrating consistently, there's so much tough times inside. There's, whether it's coming or whether it just came out of, tough times are all around startups. And so you need to be able to keep coming back. And to want to come back, you need to go back to that sense of purpose, sense of drive, sense of mission. Why are you doing it? Why do you want to keep going through this pain to keep growing?
Man, the word resilience is an important one there, because you're gonna face adversity throughout the entire process, and even after you've achieved a measure of success, as you've talked about, you're still facing adversity every day, right? Whether that's a global pandemic, or whether that's a staff member quitting on you who was integral, or whether a business deal goes sour. I guess the question there becomes, how do you emotionally regulate yourself? Because you're on a roller coaster. And so your emotions are going to wildly flux from highs and lows. How do you stay even keel?
Yeah, I would be a total fraud if I came in with all the answers, right? If I just told you what I know I'm supposed to say, like, this whole thing is worthless for your audience. The truth is, the imbalances and the issues we deal with, and I personally deal with, going through these trials and tribulations, it's just something on your mind, man. Like, the reason I stick with it is because I feel like I can't do anything else but build, right? I love going to work. I really do. And I almost, in a weird way, love the drama of it, the issues that I have to deal with, the constant mountains. And some people say, sometimes you get addicted to the rush of trying to solve things and being hit with things. I know it sounds weird. And I didn't ask for this sort of journey. Like, I would rather, let's be super clear, I would much rather have a smooth sailing journey. I really would. Okay. But now when I look at the stack of challenges or people or issues, I'm kind of like, that's kind of what I do now. Like, I kind of wake up, I'm like, okay, what are we dealing with today, right? Who are we going to work with? Who are we going to inspire? Who are we going to have to fire? What are we going to, where is our unfair advantage within what we're doing? Like, this is cool stuff. It's exciting in the macro, but like anything, the micro is all about grinding it out, rolling your sleeves up and dealing with it. The balance piece is not so obvious. I basically try to do things that I know ultimately relax me. So, hot shower, or speaking to people who inspire me, which I know it doesn't sound like a break, but sometimes speaking to people or learning from people, listening, doing things like walks or swims or reading, things that are non-businesses, So I don't know that I have the answer to balance or tuning things out. I really don't think I'm the one to ask, but I also think that's kind of the life that I'm living.
Chosen.
Right.
Do you take a break at all from this kind of work?
I'm trying to. And now the way things balance out with the family is my earliest hour, my first hour up, I try not to do any work at all. It's all family. It's all relaxation. It's a little weird now. I turned 40 this year, and it feels like the things we do now are 40-ish something. You'll hear a bit of classical music at home for no reason. I'm constantly trying new things. I'm challenging myself to get out of my comfort zone. I'm very habitual. That's what my wife says. Close friends of mine, always ordering the same thing, always keeping things efficient, always wearing the same stuff. Like, I'm not worried about any of that. I'm trying to simplify my life, all towards maximizing my job and my work, output. But more and more, I try to do little things here and there. So I am mindful that I need more of that, and frankly, work more efficiently.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this question, but in two different contexts. In the context of where you're at today, as a successful CEO, founder, bought, sold businesses, started and launched businesses, is work-life balance a thing for you? And can it be a thing?
Yeah, you know what? I've been pretty against some of the commentary out there that work-life balance ain't it, and it's sort of an old concept, and if you want to be a superstar, there is no such thing as balance. I've heard all sorts of variations and versions of that sort of thing, and it's interesting. I've been very fortunate to meet people that are a few steps in life, a few chapters, if you will.
Like ahead of you.
Right, ahead of me, right. And it's always refreshing and energizing and exciting when I meet someone who has perfect work-life balance, but also incredibly successful. It does exist. You see what I'm saying? And so if I go meet someone who has figured it out, working hard during work hours, has figured out how to delegate, has figured out how to incentivize people, and has an incredible business, and yet has an incredible family life, and so forth. It does exist. And it's obviously a high bar. It's not easy to get to, especially in the earlier years, I would say, right? But where I am, it's very important that I achieve this now. I'm sort of, as I said, in the game for 15 years. It's super important to me now that these key early years of my daughter's life and my early years here with my wife, that this is meaningful time spent, and that I put in the work on that side of the equation as well. And that I also take a step back and enjoy stuff. The work will always be there, the next time. But the biggest lesson that I think has allowed me to improve a work-life balance by far is finding your stars at work. And as a CEO, finding the talent, the raw talent, and inspiring them, incentivizing them, and giving them the room to work their magic. And when they start doing it, you can really start taking a step back, right? Because in the earlier years, you don't have that, and you don't trust. That's a problem. You don't trust enough.
Yeah.
And so I feel like once you get there where you can delegate, incentivize, and really have high caliber people around you, you can start taking a step back a bit.
How do you identify a high caliber prospect in your organization? A lot of people talk a really good game. They're all great salespeople. They'll show up a certain way, and then they just don't perform up to your expectations. So when you talk about identifying that person, giving them sort of the flexibility to excel, incentivizing them, how do you do all of that? But firstly, how do you even identify that person?
I'll tell you one thing. It's definitely not in the interview. Okay. Interviews are occasionally a reasonable gauge of the starting point, but in my experience, there's really only one way, and it's through performance, right? It's just them walking the walk. I've had the benefit of working with over 300 to 400 people over the last 15 years, staff members, and in all sorts of divisions as well. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I've been able to have, sort of this fishbowl view of folks and how they perform, and whether they deliver on what they said they would, whether they're curious enough to put in the additional work, the additional question to show up. And really, I love the under-promise, over-deliver. Sounds cliche, but I really love seeing folks under-promise and over-deliver. It never fails to excite me about the potential when I see folks doing that and leaning in and just doubling down and coming back with better results than you thought they would, or even than they thought they would sometimes. But as I look at like the leaders of some of our businesses today, like the head of our golf division, is one of our divisions at Emerge. We have 3 brands there. And the head of all of golf was a guy who started with us in, not even in this venture, in a previous venture of mine as a salesperson. He was a sales rep. He was always quiet, humble, came in, did the work, was one of those guys that just made it look easy. Delivers every single time, finds new ideas, finds acquisition opportunities, wants to be rewarded, and certainly his upside is there as he continues to perform and grow. But the reason through the years, I decided this was the right guy to run a full business of ours was because I looked at him and his track record over a decade plus, and I said, everything I gave this guy came back better. Any assignment I gave him, he crushed.
Right.
Anything that we had to challenge with, where I picked his brain, he gave very productive, grounded feedback. So when you, whatever role you're in, whoever's listening, in any job, there's no better formula than just delivering every single time to the best of your ability, right? Eventually, it gets noticed. It may take time, but if you're just a constant guy or girl who's going to get an assignment and crush it every single time, then what do you think that's going to spell? It's going to spell opportunity for you.
It's interesting that you're talking about, crushing the opportunities that you're given. You and I were co-participants in a recent in-person event with Yella Let's Talk. Shout out to our friend Hanny there who put that together.
Did a great job.
And one of the conversation pieces that you were talking about, and I remember it vividly because I was reflecting on it on the way home, was this idea of coming into the office versus working remotely. We live in a world and a society now where, as a result of the pandemic, like hybrid work, remote work was not really a thing pre-pandemic, right? There was the rare job here or there, but now it's almost become a staple where people walk into interviews asking, how often am I in the office versus at home? And you had an interesting answer. You talked about how you think that you should be in the office. Why is that?
Yeah, in particular, I was referring to folks entering the workforce and younger folks who seem to relish in this hybrid or remote world. And my whole thing is, at a time when many people are not showing up, if I were younger right now and I joined a startup or a company, I would recognize very clearly the arbitrage in going to the office and being around senior leaders and executive folks and management folks above me, where I could learn, where I could show my face, where I could make mistakes in front of them, but get them to support me, handhold. There's so much value in being present. And so what I never understood, and that's the point I was making, is like, don't people want to get ahead? Like, why are like sort of these newer generations so fixated on what they're entitled to, right? You will be entitled to whatever you want, but you got to walk the walk first. You got to show up. And so to me, if there's a team of 20 or 50 young folks and all of them are working home, don't you think you would stand out by showing up every single day and saying, I know I don't need to be here, but I just kind of love being here. I want to learn from you. Maybe you end up getting an extra lunch here or there. You end up having to build a deck that you weren't good at. That's extra work, but that's extra points.
Right.
So to me, the whole thing is like, it blows my mind that, say, during the pandemic, obviously, like everyone else, we said you can work remotely. But myself and my COO at the time, we showed up every single day to the office. And we were, fun story, we were ordering from one of these local restaurants. It was called Basil Box. And I think like we had 80 by the end of the like we were ordering the same lunch every single day showing up. And we would order lunch for anyone who showed up. Everything was on autopilot. But rarely did the younger folks and the newer folks in the company showed up. And that always beat me up because it's like, you could be sitting around listening to me, like the CEO and the COO right outside, talking shit, gossiping, learning, networking, have guests come through. And they just most of them never did it. And the ones that did, they're with us and taking on bigger roles today. I don't know if it's an accident or not.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think back to times when I was, an employee, and it was the number of things I learned from just hearing someone else do a sales call or de-escalate a problem with a client or a consumer or whatever, the in-between meeting conversations versus as soon as you're done a Zoom meeting, you end it and now you're just sitting waiting for the next one in isolation in your condo type of thing. There's so many lessons that I remember learning and taking away just from, by proxy, being around other people in that industry. And I'd imagine it's kind of the same thing in general, like based on what you're saying. If there was a person sitting there watching and listening to you as a CEO, how you carry yourself, how you communicate with others, and they have aspirations and ambitions to maybe start their own company one day or to do whatever the case may be. They learn so much from that they otherwise wouldn't on video.
And here's the secret. Leadership folks and management folks, at least that I know of, and I'm counting myself here, we love feeling like we're making impact on younger folks. But to do that, you need to see someone that is hungry for it.
Right.
If they have the drive, if they're showing you what they're struggling with, they're trying really hard, it took them late into the night, they realize that you needed certain help at the office, even if it was admin help that had nothing to do with their job description, and they did it because they knew they would make your life easier. That's exciting for me to be like, okay, you know what? I want to give back to this kid. I really go above and beyond when I see the motivation. But it feels like it's reversed sometimes. It feels like the kids come in and they're almost like, again, what's in it for me? And that's just like, I don't subscribe to that. And that's not how I came up either. Although I've been a CEO since 25. But I always felt like I respected those that were there before me. I wanted to learn from them. I learned how to listen very carefully. And there's no task beneath me. So when I say someone doing a bit of admin work, if we're in cost saving mode, I'm writing the PR. I'm scheduling the PR, right? In good times, we might have a PR company, we might have an investor relations company, but I will do whatever it takes. I will go through the site. I will fix words on the site. I will change a logo myself. I will ask for 4 different, right? So like hands on, if I'm doing it, hopefully others look for it and want to do it as well.
What makes a person a good leader? I've been in scenarios, for example, and I'll give you some context, where the top salesperson in my organization was promoted to a managerial role and was suddenly in charge of managing other people and leading other people. But they failed miserably at it because they were really good at sales, but in my mind, it didn't necessarily automatically make them good leaders. What's the trait there that's necessary for someone to be a good leader? Because sometimes a good leader, like you see it on sports team, for example, the captain of the team is not the highest point producing player on the ice.
Right. It's a very good question. And for what it's worth, we've had very similar experiences with high caliber sales folks. They generally do not make amazing managerial talent. It's just not their thing. They love the sale. They are very fast paced. They're very aggressive. They're risk taking. Leadership and leading teams is about one thing: people, right? It's not about how fast you go, how hard you go. It's about understanding the people business, right? And what I mean by that is you got to start with a basic level. Okay. Transparency, being authentic, right? Trust building, right? Layering the right incentives for folks, right? Explaining that you're human too. At least, there's some folks that try not to admit that, but like being clear and early on, like, sort of jumping into a division or a leadership role, you got to tell folks, hey, I'm new to this. I'm probably going to make some mistakes. In fact, I'm almost certainly going to make some mistakes. Be patient with me because I've been put in this role because there's certain things that I do well that are going to help you grow. So you got to make it about them, right? And that's exactly the approach I took when I jumped into one of our portfolio brands, because I sit at the holding company level, but at some point I had to jump in and run one of these businesses. And this was sort of the exact method and approach that I took. And so it kind of, you got to turn it into, it's got to be, everything has to start with trust. Clear communication, right? And sometimes I like to err on the side of over communication. I don't mind a bit more than nothing at all and being misunderstood. Right. And so when you start looking at communication, psychology, helping people through tough times, again, your staff, your salespeople or whatever division you're in, they go through their own shit.
Yeah.
They have their mortgage. The wife might be cheating or the husband might be cheating. There's some other issues at home. They come into work. You got to deal with people before you deal with salespeople, right? And so a lot of this has to do with, the psychology of it, the ability to recognize patterns or issues, resolving it in a certain way, like almost like a Zen-like way. I like to think of, like, I'm a big basketball fan. Phil Jackson, just like being super Zen about how you look at stuff, how you look at your team, and how you inspire them to think differently and to push their own limits, but let them come to their own conclusions. So there's a lot of philosophy on how good management and good leadership works. But the one thing you can't do is just be a go person, as you would say, as a salesperson, with just running after leads, treating everything like a number.
Right.
That's almost a recipe for a certain disaster.
So then how do you incentivize the salespeople? How do you incentivize the superstars on your team that are really good at what they do, but they're not manager material? And it doesn't mean that they can't become manager material, but in their current form, they're not manager material because they're so hyper-focused on driving sales.
Right. And here's the truth of it all. The folks that are probably not going to be great managers of team members probably deep down know it, and will be relieved as well if you can incentivize them the right way in their own world. So in other words, if you're a rock star sales guy, and your numbers are getting bigger and bigger and you're producing more and more for the firm, deep down, you want just more of that. Right. And so opportunities, like, say we go buy another company, then we say to the best performing sales person, hey, we're going to give you a mandate to go sell, this as well on top of what you're doing. And so they have, from experience, their happiness is directly correlated to their income and their commissions. And so you got to give them a path to grow those, because that's why they're here ultimately. They want to make money. Sure. Let's not kid ourselves. Yep. But sometimes they might come up and say, okay, well, where's my career progression going? Like, I want to lead stuff. And I think that's a very critical point to address it if you really don't think they're the right person for a leadership role, to say, look, why do you want to lead stuff? Let's kind of unpack that a bit. Mm-hmm. Is it more income? Is it recognition? Is it growth? Right? And those are very different buckets, right? Because income, we can talk about that. We can give you more to do or add or grow your commission structure, so you can handle that there, right? Growth, there's other ways to grow, right? Without having to lead teams, because teams becomes HR. Like, pretty running much a company is an HR job. So I
remember being a manager and hated it.
Yeah,
because well, it's the examples you shared. Yeah. I'm like, I have my life, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to balance my life and then make sure that when I come to work, I'm focused. And then suddenly I find myself spending most of my days, I don't want to use the word babysitting, but I'm spending most of my days playing therapist.
Yeah.
And I was sort of learning as I went, okay, I need to learn how to grow my emotional intelligence so that I can connect with these people on a human level, because now I got to motivate them to somehow park whatever is troubling them outside of work so that they can perform here. Because if they don't perform here, I now have to deal with a disciplinary action. And I'm like, why the hell did I sign up for this?
Right.
Like, it's so much easier when all I had to focus on was just my tasks, and that's it.
Right.
And I find a lot of people who get into managerial roles immediately say to themselves, this is not what I expected. And that's why I was asking about, how do you motivate and incentivize your salespeople, especially in an industry or in companies where the path is a little bit linear in terms of how you move up. You go from salesperson to manager. That, and then from manager to director, from director to whatever. And so you have to go through these. So if there's a founder, entrepreneur, leader of an organization listening, watching this, and they have a linear structure in place, what advice would you give them?
I think it goes back to the question of who constantly delivers in assignments, no matter what you give them, right? Like there's certain people within the organization that are just going to be winners no matter what. Super important to retain and double down on those folks. I think clearly not everyone is meant to be a manager. I think you need to find the balance between what a reward means and who isn't necessarily as good as they think, because that's also fair. Like you also got to be honest with folks and be like, managerial level, you're coming to me about a managerial level, but yet out of the last 3 or 4 months, 2 of them aren't where we needed you to be. So what are we talking about? Get to a point where you have a couple of years worth and maybe we can talk about it. So I think some of that's also transparency and being brutally honest about where things are at and what it'll take to get to, managerial role. I don't claim to have the answer always. I think like a lot of times the why is super key and helpful to understand why does someone come to you thinking they need to be a manager? What's their inner motive, as I said. Yeah. But I also say, like, I just gave you another live example of someone who was a salesperson, eventually became the head of sales, and now runs an entire division. And as they run an entire division, onus is on me and our HQ team to say, how are we going to surround this winner with his gaps, right? Because he's not perfect, and he definitely hasn't done a fair amount of managerial work on a bigger scale. So where within the organization are there gaps? Do we need to hire? Do we need to place other folks? Do I need to jump in and support in certain ways? And so it's an ongoing journey. But here's the best part. If you find winners and you incentivize them and you move out of the way, and so that they feel they have the room to work their magic, that formula just continues to perpetuate good news as I see it
down the road. I want to go back a moment to the conversation around, being a founder, CEO. So when you're starting a new business and you're launching a venture of some kind, the type of people that are on your team at that early of a stage are integral to the viability of the project.
Right.
Like you hire the wrong person, it's very possible the whole thing goes up in flames because you had the wrong person in place. So earlier you said, the hiring process, the interview process can give you some sort of a gauge, but for the most part, it's performance. Yeah. How long should you be waiting before you pull the plug on someone and go to find someone else, especially if you're in that early stages of your business?
Right, because those are 2 different things. Hiring under a setup that is already up and running, you have a company, you're just hiring from an HR lens. That's where I was like, and a quick interview isn't going to tell you much. Some people are just great at interviewing, right? It tells you almost nothing. In startup mode, if you're looking for a co-founder or even like some quick, early talent, I should say, I really think it comes down to, I guess, cultural fit. And so the only way to do that, and they call it, I used to be in banking, they used to call it the airport test. If you were stuck with someone at an airport and flight was delayed, are you able to sit with them for 3, 4, 5 hours and feel okay? And ideally learn a thing or 2 and just have mutual, comfort, respect sort of thing, right? Because you're in the trenches, especially in the early stages. You need to look at this individual that is potentially, an early employee. You need to be like, can I literally be there at 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m. at night, fixing something, fixing an email, messaging with them, calling them? Will I see them, by our side as we're starting this early stages of a huge battle, right? Like a never-ending battle. So I think it starts with that. Is there that chemistry? And you got to spend time, right? So I would, go out with someone for lunch or coffee and spend some time, ask them tough questions, ask them about their personal life, see where they're willing to go, see what they're willing to share, see if you can learn a bit about what they've gone through, what they've been through. Obviously, some younger talent will have a relatively limited experience, but everyone has life experience. I think you can draw on that. And so for me, it was always like, the people around you need to be, about the mission, need to feel. You can't have a funny feeling. That always doesn't end well, right? Like you can't have a funny feeling about someone being a bit difficult or a bit negative.
Your gut is usually right.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to get that stuff, and to do that, you got to vibe a bit. You got to spend a bit of time, maybe have a drink or a bite or a coffee, go on a walk, like whatever.
So I get to know them on a personal level.
Yeah, a little
first.
bit, right? Yeah. I think that's very important early on.
If you are an early founder, what advice would you give someone as they're about to start their venture? Something that, you've learned along the way that perhaps was advice you needed to hear when you were starting.
Yeah, so I'll move a bit to the business side of this. And I would say, like, whatever you're starting, it's very important to spend enough time up front figuring out what the idea is and which space it's in and whether it's even viable. So many ideas are pretty crappy up front. I can see, like, from a mile away. Like, it pains me sometimes, and I look at different ideas that are pitched and sent to me, and I'm like, damn it, like, I just almost want to say, and I don't know that, I wouldn't know the person in many cases. It's just not going to work. Like, it's not going to work. Okay, like, you might pivot 7 times over, and maybe there some random iteration you might hit lightning somewhere where I can't even see. But so many ideas are doomed on day one because the economics may not work, or how you're approaching it may not work. And so I almost like, I think now it's never been easier than it's easier than ever, I should say. It's easier than ever to start a company today. There's all the quick tools. You can literally do something within 24 hours, right? You can launch something. But that doesn't mean you should do it without the research and without the thought. Now, I'm all about being scrappy and testing things and switching things up. I love that. But I think a little bit more time up front thinking through how this can actually work, like where will this fit in the world, is worthwhile. So I feel like that would be one of them. But then 2, I also think that the more niche in this crazy world, like, it's a very competitive world, so the more niche you can go on your idea, the better. And so we found success when we started moving away from broad e-commerce, selling everything to everyone, into very specific niche categories with strong communities, right? So, for example, golf, there's a fanatical, a group of people who love golf and are very sticky. They keep coming back. They don't refund much. Like, great metrics. Our other business is True Local, meat and seafood subscription with local farmers. So you're only buying food, you're supporting local, supporting Canada, obviously a big theme now. And so the more niche, the more you can stand out with your message and be true to your mission.
You talked about having the idea and pitching it. What's the first step in pitching a concept? Because you're absolutely right. In today's age with AI and everything, 24 hours, you can have a website, a product model, an idea, everything sort of registered, ready to go. And then you got to get to the point where you got to get in front of people. How do you get in front of people these days? Especially because now, in the past, you can maybe, if you really wanted to make an impression, you would call the person, you would send them a letter, you would show up at the office. But now in the age of social media, you're just sending mass DMs, and on the receiving end, I'm sure you probably feel like, okay, well, I'm probably number 900 today that you've sent that email to.
Right.
What advice would you give to founders and entrepreneurs who are about to start pitching?
I think before you pitch these days, you got to develop a sort of case study, even if it's early. You got to put in a bit extra work. Like, gone are the days where I have a cool idea, I'm going to disrupt this. Can you start writing me, a 50K check or 100K check? So I think it's way more competitive than that now. Yeah. And I think folks really need to see that you have some sort of secret sauce. And even if it's not fully developed, that you're showing the grit, you're showing the resourcefulness, the scrappiness to arbitrage how you're getting the word out, how you're testing your concept. So before I give advice on how to pitch, the game will do the talking. If you come across and you're able to say, hey, with no money or with my very little savings, I've been able to case study this and get amazing responses, and I'm getting sold out of my product. And that's my biggest problem. I'm getting sold out of, I know I don't have a lot of product, but whatever I have is getting sold out. And this is how I've been doing it. I've been whatever, picking up my phone, doing my video live stream, and I've been able to excite people to come and try this out. And I know with money, if I'm doing this without money, imagine what I can do with money.
Yeah.
And so you need to stand out that way. Gone are the days again of saying, this is my idea, this is my pitch deck, it's beautiful, I spent a bit of money on it, and let's get started, believe in me.
Well, how much as an investor are you investing in the idea versus investing in the founder?
I would say certainly skewed towards the founder themselves and what I see in them. At this point, ideas are a dime a dozen. And frankly, almost every idea gets iterated so much. So you really never know where the idea is going to end up. You can look at all the well-known companies today, the Ubers, the Airbnbs. None of them started anywhere near this current form, right? And so you gotta kind of identify certain traits. I always keep saying the same thing. It starts with trust. Are they gritty? Will they last? Can they handle pain? Are they hungry? Will they work hard? Are they good with people? Right? Do they treat everything around them, not only yourself, but your secretary, the people outside, the Uber driver? How is their mindset? Are they a natural born leader that can do much bigger things if presented with the right set of factors?
Yeah.
To me, that's always what I'm investing in, right? And I do a fair amount of angel investing, but I always kind of I need to walk away feeling a certain level of energy with the founder that
you just know. You just feel it.
Yeah, which is a bit contradictory what I just said about interviewing, not giving you the final answer. But I guess with founders, part of their job description is storytelling and is connecting with people. Because if I felt a certain magic with someone presenting to me, it probably feels like this the same person that's going to be speaking to a big partnership or selling the company one day. And so that is part of the job description, right? So they need to be great storytellers, I think. I mean, obviously others have been very successful when they're like extremely technical, but that's why a lot of them have a co-founder that does a lot of that.
And there usually is that scenario where the technical person is kind of just in the background doing the technical stuff.
Doing the work.
Yeah. And then you have the person up front who's the salesperson.
Right.
Is there something someone could say to you in an interview or as a founder, let's say they come to you, I'm pitching you on this new cup, and they say something that's a red flag. What would that red flag be? What can someone say to you as an investor that would immediately turn you off?
In my world, and this may not apply to everyone else, in my world, I want to understand how you make money, i.e. profit. I am not interested in the fly high 0 to $1 billion or go home world, the venture world. So I need to understand, practically speaking, when and how will this product ultimately make money for you? And what is your horizon on it? So don't come to me with a plan to grab market share. First of all, I can't fund it. I don't have billions of dollars to fund that sort of thing. It's a VC game. So I'm grounded in I always say, like, I'm on planet Earth down here, right? You want to play the sky high game, you can. But when you come to me, I want to know that you're the bootstrap type of founder that can make this happen with limited capital. That's what interests me. I'm more interested in more certain, very good outcomes, may not be home run to the sky outcomes.
But consistent.
Right. Consistent and a bit more predictable, especially in this crazy world. And so those investments appeal to me. Now, from a character perspective, I did say storytelling was important, but I always shy away from someone that's too salesy. If I don't see human elements in your eyes, in your body language, in the way you treat people, if you're too arrogant, I don't care if you're brilliant, but if you're like arrogant and I just don't get a good feeling, that's definitely a red flag for me. I need to feel like business again is about people. And that same arrogant person who might be 5-10 times smarter than me sitting in front of me, I know that they might be right now, but there'll be a time where they may not be right. And then as an investor, I need to talk to them about this stuff. And you know what type of character is going to show up when you need to be talking through problems. And why would you want that?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. And that's the part of thinking down the road beyond just what the idea in front of you is. Is there any other piece of advice you can share in all your in your 15 years in the game? Building, scaling, hiring, firing, merging, acquiring, all of it. If there's one piece of advice you can give to an entrepreneur that we haven't talked about yet, what would that be?
The number one thing that I've learned the hard way, and that's caused me great angst and struggle, is there's certain times where opportunities were exciting, but the people that I partnered with or dealt with were not the right people. And I knew it deep down, but I was eager to try certain things or get certain things done, whether it's a transaction, whether it's certain investors that were giving me money to do something. Every single time I partnered with the wrong people, the deal overall turned out to be wrong. Partner with good people no matter what. Never compromise, no matter how invigorated or excited you are about getting to the finish line on a deal, on a transaction, on certain amounts of growth. If you do it with the wrong people, you will regret it.
I love that.
They say no such thing as a good deal with bad people.
I can appreciate that. Ghassan, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
A real pleasure.
I told you it flies by.
The 15 years or the podcast? Because the 15 years were quite long. All of this to show for it.
What's next on the horizon for you?
Just building, man.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I was speaking to my wife the other day, and we were talking and reflecting on all this time spent building. And the best part is I feel like I'm so early in the game. I really, really do. I genuinely feel like I haven't showcased 5, maybe 10% of what I think I'm capable of. And I'm just super excited to show up every day and build.
So then one more question here. What are you not doing right now that you want to be doing?
I really enjoy the art of storytelling. I really enjoy building more community. And one of the things I've been doing a lot more of by jumping into one of our brands is like being deep in the weeds with the community. Like something like True Local has a deep meaning and even more so now, a sense of purpose. So I love getting closer to the action rather than sitting at the holding company level and having other managers run stuff. So I'm much more hands-on, and I love the impact I'm making, and I feel it. And I'm excited about all the progress that we're making.
Incredible. Well, I wish you the best of luck with the building that you're on and the roller coaster that you're on, because inevitably, like you said, there'll be a day where it comes and you're just like, why am I doing this? This is terrible. And then there'll be a high the next day, and that's part of the journey. But I really do appreciate you sharing your time with me.
Love it. Thanks so much for having me.
We'll probably do a part 2 at some point just to see where you are in this journey.
You bet.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Fantastic.
Wonderful.